r/pettyrevenge PTA mom tried to blackmail me, so I exposed her crush scandal. The manila envelope on my desk might as well have been a loaded gun. My hands trembled as I stared at it, sitting there innocuously between my lesson plans and a stack of ungraded math tests. The kids had been dismissed 20 minutes ago, their excited Friday afternoon chatter still echoing in my empty classroom. I'd been looking forward to the weekend, maybe taking Jake to the park, finally unpacking the last of the boxes from our move into the new apartment. Simple pleasures for a life I was still rebuilding. Instead, Sarah Whitman had just blown everything to pieces. Go ahead, Rebecca. Open it. Sarah's perfectly manicured nails drummed against my desk as she perched on the edge like some predatory bird. Her smile was all teeth and no warmth, the same fake expression she wore during PTA meetings when she was about to steamroll another parent's suggestion. I knew I shouldn't give her the satisfaction, but my curiosity won. Inside were printed screenshots of text messages, my number clearly visible, having what appeared to be inappropriate conversations with someone listed as student parent. The messages were flirtatious, unprofessional, completely damning. They were also completely fake. Where did you get these? My voice came out steadier than I felt. Does it matter? Sarah examined her nails with theatrical boredom. What matters is how they'll look to Principal Morrison. To the school board. To your ex-husband's lawyer. My blood went cold at the mention of David's lawyer. Our custody agreement was barely 6 months old, and he'd made it crystal clear during the divorce proceedings that he was looking for any excuse to limit my time with Jake. Being fired for inappropriate conduct with a parent would hand him exactly what he needed. What do you want, Sarah? Her smile widened. Your resignation letter. Effective immediately. Personal reasons, of course. Family obligations. You understand. Why? The question burst out of me. I've never done anything to you. I keep my head down, I do my job, You exist, she said simply. You're young, the kids love you, and the other parents think you're some kind of saint for persevering through your difficult divorce. She made air quotes around the words, her voice dripping with mockery. Did you really think I'd let you waltz into Riverside Elementary and start collecting sympathy votes? I've worked too hard building my influence here to let some desperate divorcee threaten it. I stared at her, finally understanding. This wasn't about anything I'd done. This was about Sarah's pathological need to control everything and everyone in her orbit. As PTA president, she ruled the school's parent community with an iron fist disguised as concerned volunteerism. She decided which teachers deserved praise and which needed pressure. She determined whose fundraising ideas got approved and whose got buried in committee. And apparently, she decided I was a threat to her little kingdom. You have until Monday morning, Sarah continued, sliding off my desk and smoothing her designer skirt. Turn in your resignation to Morrison's office, clean out your classroom, and disappear quietly. Or these screenshots find their way to everyone who matters. She paused at my classroom door, looking back with that predatory smile. Oh, and Rebecca? Don't even think about trying to explain these away. Who do you think they'll believe, a respected community leader and devoted mother of 3, or a woman who couldn't even keep her own marriage together? The door clicked shut behind her, leaving me alone with the envelope and the ruins of everything I'd fought so hard to rebuild. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at those fabricated messages until the words blurred together. The afternoon sun slanted through my classroom windows, casting long shadows across the empty desks where my students, my kids, had been just an hour ago. Tommy Martinez, who'd finally started raising his hand after months of encouragement. Emma Chen, whose reading level had jumped 2 grades since September. Aiden Brooks, who still slipped me drawings of dinosaurs because I'd mentioned loving them during the first week of school. I was going to lose them all. My phone buzzed against the desk. A text from my sister Lisa, asterisk still on for dinner Sunday? Jake's been asking about Aunt Lisa's famous spaghetti all week, asterisk. Jake. My 7-year-old son who'd already been through too much upheaval for someone so small. The divorce had been brutal enough, David hiring the most aggressive lawyer he could find, painting me as an unstable mother who'd abandoned her family responsibilities by going back to work. Never mind that I'd needed the job to support us after he'd cleaned out our joint savings account. Never mind that teaching had always been my passion, put on hold for 10 years while I played the perfect suburban housewife. I'd fought tooth and nail for joint custody, spending every penny I had on legal fees. The judge had finally ruled in my favor, noting Jake's clear bond with me and my stable employment at Riverside Elementary. David had been furious, promising his lawyer he'd find grounds for an appeal. Sarah's fabricated evidence would gift wrap that appeal for him. Another buzz. This time it was Jake himself, texting from David's phone, asterisk mom. Dad's taking me to laser tag tomorrow. Can I tell you about it when I see you Sunday, asterisk? My chest tightened. Even in his excitement about laser tag, Jake was already thinking about sharing the experience with me. That's how it had been since the divorce, we'd grown closer than ever during our time together. I was his safe harbor, the place where he could just be a kid without walking on eggshells around David's new girlfriend or pretending to be excited about his father's latest business ventures. If Sarah succeeded in destroying my career, David wouldn't need a custody battle. No judge would award time to a mother fired for inappropriate conduct with parents. Jake would become another casualty in Sarah's war for control. I picked up the fake screenshots again, studying them more carefully. The formatting looked authentic, but something nagged at me about the timestamp alignment. More importantly, I recognized the phone number listed as student parent. It belonged to Marcus Reed, whose daughter Sophia was in my class. Marcus was recently divorced too, and we chatted briefly at a few school events. Friendly conversations about single parenthood, nothing more. But Sarah had clearly been watching, taking notes, building her case. The realization hit me like ice water. This had been planned for weeks, maybe months. Sarah hadn't just woken up Friday morning and decided to destroy me. She'd been methodically gathering information, looking for vulnerabilities, crafting the perfect weapon. The fake messages were just sophisticated enough to pass initial scrutiny, designed to force a quick resignation before I could mount any real defense. But why the rush? Why the Monday deadline? I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the school district's website, navigating to the staff directory. There it was, the posting I'd somehow missed earlier in the week. Riverside Elementary seeking qualified candidates for potential mid-year teaching position. Inquiries should be directed to Principal Morrison. My stomach dropped. Sarah already had someone lined up for my job. Someone she could control, someone who wouldn't threaten her carefully constructed hierarchy. This wasn't just about eliminating me, it was about installing her own puppet in my classroom. The manila envelope crinkled as my grip tightened. Sarah had made one critical mistake in her perfect plan. She'd underestimated exactly how far a desperate mother would go to protect her child. I spent the entire weekend spiraling between rage and desperation, barely sleeping, replaying Sarah's threats on an endless loop. Jake noticed during our Sunday morning pancake tradition, his 7-year-old eyes too perceptive for his own good. Mom, are you sick? You keep staring at nothing. I forced a smile, ruffling his dark hair that looked so much like mine. Just tired, sweetheart. Work stuff. Is someone being mean to you at school? His fork paused halfway to his mouth, syrup dripping onto his plate. Tommy's mom was mean to his teacher last year and made her cry. The innocent question nearly broke me. Jake had inherited my protective instincts, always ready to defend the people he loved. How could I explain that yes, someone was being mean, so mean that she might tear apart the life we'd fought so hard to build? Nothing I can't handle, buddy. Tell me more about laser tag with Dad. But as Jake launched into an animated description of yesterday's adventure, complete with sound effects and dramatic reenactments, my mind was already racing ahead to Monday morning. 24 hours to figure out how to fight back against someone who held all the cards. By Sunday evening, after dropping Jake back at David's pristine suburban house, I'd made my decision. I couldn't let Sarah win without a fight, even if it meant risking everything in the process. I drove straight to school, using my key card to slip into the building after hours. The hallways felt different in the darkness, familiar yet foreign, like walking through a dream version of my workplace. My footsteps echoed as I made my way to Principal Morrison's office. Morrison had always been fair to me, professional but distant. He was new this year, hired after our previous principal retired, and he'd been working hard to establish himself with both staff and parents. Sarah, naturally, had immediately positioned herself as his unofficial liaison to the parent community. I'd watched her monopolize his attention during school events, always appearing at his elbow with some urgent PTA matter that required immediate discussion. If I was going to have any chance of surviving Sarah's attack, I needed to get to Morrison first. Beat her to the punch with my own version of events. His office was locked, but the main administrative area was accessible. I left a note on his secretary's desk requesting an urgent meeting first thing Monday morning, before regular hours. Regarding false allegations, I wrote, keeping it vague enough to avoid seeming paranoid but specific enough to convey seriousness. Walking back to my classroom, I started mentally preparing my defense. The fake screenshots could potentially be debunked by a digital forensics expert, but that would take time I didn't have. I needed something more immediate, something that would make Morrison question Sarah's credibility. That's when I remembered the fundraising committee meeting from 3 weeks ago. I'd stayed late to help set up for the silent auction, arranging donated items and printing last-minute bid sheets. Most of the other volunteers had left by 8 o'clock, but I'd remained behind to finish organizing the display tables. Around 8:30, I'd gone to the staff lounge for more extension cords and heard voices from Morrison's office. The door had been slightly ajar, and I'd glimpsed Sarah inside with Morrison, standing much closer than any professional conversation required. At the time, I'd assumed they were discussing auction logistics. Sarah's hand on Morrison's arm, the way they'd sprung apart when they heard footsteps in the hallway, I'd filed it away as mildly odd but not worth thinking about. Now, with Sarah's threat hanging over my head, that memory took on new significance. What if there was more to their relationship than PTA business? My heart started racing as the possibilities crystallized. If Sarah was having an affair with Morrison, it would explain her confidence in manipulating him. It would also explain why she felt so secure in her position of power. More importantly, it might just be the ammunition I needed to fight back. I spent Monday mornings pre-dawn hours digging through every photo I'd taken at recent school events, my laptop screen glowing in the darkness of my apartment. Coffee grew cold beside me as I scrolled through fundraiser pictures, back-to-school night snapshots, and holiday concert photos, searching for any evidence of Sarah and Morrison's relationship. By 6 a.m., I'd found 3 potentially damning images. In one from the Halloween carnival, Sarah's hand lingered on Morrison's lower back while they posed with other PTA members. Another from the Thanksgiving feast showed them sharing what looked like an intimate laugh while standing apart from the crowd. The third, and most promising, captured them near Morrison's car in the school parking lot after the winter concert, Sarah leaning in close while Morrison checked his phone. Individually, the photos could be explained away as friendly interactions. Together, they painted a picture of two people who were far more comfortable with each other than professional colleagues should be. I was formatting them into a document when my phone rang. My stomach plummeted when I saw the caller ID, David's lawyer. Rebecca, this is James Mitchell. I'm calling regarding some concerning information that's come to my attention about your conduct at Riverside Elementary. My hands went numb. What information? I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. Inappropriate communications with a parent. My client is naturally concerned about the environment his son is exposed to during your custody time. Mitchell's voice carried that particular brand of smugness that divorce lawyers perfected. We're prepared to file an emergency motion to modify the custody arrangement if necessary. Those allegations are completely false. That's what everyone says, Rebecca. Look, I'm calling as a courtesy to give you a chance to be reasonable about this. David doesn't want to put Jake through another court battle, but he can't stand by while you expose the boy to this kind of scandal. I closed my eyes, feeling Sarah's trap tightening around me. She hadn't waited until Monday to start spreading the poison. What does David want? Voluntary modification. He keeps Jake during the week, you get supervised visits on weekends. Clean and simple, no messy hearings that might traumatize the child. Supervised visits. Like I was some kind of danger to my own son. I need time to think. You have until Wednesday. After that, we file the emergency motion and let the judge sort it out. But Rebecca? When this hits the court system, it becomes public record. Local papers love these kinds of teacher scandals. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my laptop screen where those photos seemed suddenly pathetic and inadequate. Sarah had outmaneuvered me at every turn, anticipating my moves before I'd even made them. My meeting with Morrison was in an hour. I'd planned to present the photos as subtle leverage, hoping to make him question Sarah's motives. But now I realized the true scope of her attack. This wasn't just about my job anymore. She was systematically destroying every aspect of my life, and she was doing it faster than I could mount any defense. The photos weren't enough. They were suspicious but not conclusive, open to interpretation and easy to dismiss. I needed something concrete, undeniable evidence that would shift the balance of power back in my direction. As I gathered my things for school, a desperate idea began forming. Sarah's confidence came from believing she held all the secrets while operating in the shadows. But secrets were only powerful when they stayed hidden. What if I could force her into the light? The next PTA meeting was Thursday evening. Sarah would be holding court as usual, probably basking in her victory over the troublesome teacher she'd eliminated. She'd never expect me to show up. After all, by Thursday, I'd supposedly be gone. Time to prove her wrong. The meeting with Principal Morrison went worse than I'd imagined. He barely looked up from his computer when I knocked on his open office door at 7 a.m. sharp. "Rebecca, I got your note. What's this about false allegations?" I'd rehearsed this conversation all weekend, but sitting across from his massive oak desk, the words tangled in my throat. Morrison was younger than I'd expected when he was hired, maybe early 40s, with a kind of easy confidence that came from never having his world systematically dismantled by a vindictive PTA president. "Someone has fabricated evidence against me," I began, placing printed copies of the fake screenshots on his desk. Text messages that never happened, designed to make it look like I'd been inappropriate with a parent. Morrison's expression shifted as he scanned the documents. His jaw tightened, and I caught something that looked like recognition flicker across his face before he composed himself. "These are serious allegations, Rebecca. Have you contacted this parent? Marcus Reed?" "The messages are fake," I repeated, hearing the desperation creep into my voice despite my best efforts. "I've never sent anything like this to any parent. Someone created them to force me out. Who would do something like that?" This was my opening. I pulled up the photos on my phone, angling the screen toward him. I think Sarah Whitman might have motivations that aren't entirely professional. The change in Morrison was immediate and dramatic. His face went pale, then flushed red as he stared at the image of Sarah's hand on his back. When he looked up, his eyes had gone cold. "Ms. Chen, I think you need to be very careful about the accusations you're making. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just suggesting that maybe we should look at who benefits from my departure before." "Enough." Morrison stood abruptly, his chair rolling backward. "These photos prove nothing except that you've been surveilling staff and parents at school events. Combined with these messages, it paints a disturbing picture of your judgment." My heart sank as I realized my mistake. I played my hand too early, too desperately. Instead of making Morrison question Sarah's motives, I'd made him feel cornered and dangerous. "The screenshots are fake," I tried again, but Morrison was already moving toward his door. "I need time to review this situation thoroughly. In the meantime, I think it would be best if you took a few personal days while we sort this out." "Personal days?" "The professional equivalent of being sent to your room." "Tom, please." "Principal Morrison," he corrected sharply. "And Rebecca?" "I'd strongly advise against making any more unfounded allegations about community members. It could be construed as harassment." I walked out of his office in a daze, clutching my bag like a lifeline. The hallways were filling with early arriving teachers, and I caught Jennifer Walsh from 3rd grade giving me a curious look as I passed. How long before everyone knew? How long before the whispers started? My classroom felt like a mausoleum as I packed up my personal items, following Morrison's suggestion that I clean out anything I might need during my indefinite personal leave. The kids would arrive in 2 hours to find a substitute teacher and no explanation for where Ms. Chen had gone. I was wrapping my favorite mug, a gift from last year's class with World's Best Teacher, painted in wobbly 7-year-old handwriting, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Asterisk heard you had an interesting chat with Morrison this morning. Did you really think those pathetic photos would work? You're even more naive than I thought. Resignation letter better be on his desk by noon, or the screenshots go viral. Your choice. S**. My hand shook as I read it twice, then a third time. Sarah had someone feeding her information in real time. Maybe Morrison himself, or maybe she had other allies throughout the school. Either way, she knew exactly how badly my gambit had failed. But her text revealed something else. She was rattled enough to break her own cover, messaging me directly instead of maintaining plausible deniability. For the first time since Friday afternoon, I smiled. Sarah Whitman had just made her own mistake. I stared at Sarah's text, my mind racing. She'd been so careful until now, orchestrating everything through intermediaries and implications. But her desperation to confirm my defeat had made her sloppy, giving me the first piece of concrete evidence that she was behind the fake screenshots. My fingers hovered over my phone keyboard. Every instinct screamed to fire back with something cutting, to let her know I wasn't going down without a fight. Instead, I forced myself to think strategically. Sarah expected me to crumble, to slink away defeated. What if I let her believe exactly that? Asterisk you win. I'll have the letter ready within the hour asterisk. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then immediately took screenshots of our entire text exchange. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The hardest part was writing the actual resignation letter. Every word felt like swallowing glass, but it had to look authentic enough to fool Sarah into letting her guard down. I kept it simple: personal reasons, family obligations, effective immediately. The kind of vague language that could mean anything and therefore meant nothing. At 11:45 a.m., I walked into the main office and handed the sealed envelope to Morrison's secretary, Mrs. Patterson. She gave me a sympathetic look that suggested rumors were already circulating. "I'm sorry to see you go, dear. The children will miss you terribly." I managed a weak smile. Sometimes life takes unexpected turns. By lunch, Sarah had texted again, asterisk smart choice. "Clean out your classroom by 3 p.m. and don't come back, asterisk." I responded with a simple thumbs up emoji, playing my role as the defeated victim while my mind worked furiously on the real plan. Sarah thought she'd eliminated her biggest threat, but she'd actually just freed me from any pretense of playing nice. That afternoon, I drove straight to the public library and claimed a computer in the back corner, away from curious eyes. If Sarah had allies feeding her information from school, I needed to do my research somewhere completely disconnected from Riverside Elementary. I started with social media, diving deep into Sarah's carefully curated online presence. Her Facebook was a shrine to perfect motherhood and community involvement, photos of her 3 kids at various activities, her volunteering at charity events, family vacations that looked like magazine spreads. Her husband Richard appeared frequently in the older posts but had become notably absent from recent photos. Interesting. I shifted to Instagram, where Sarah's account was public and filled with the kind of aspirational lifestyle content that made suburban mothers feel inadequate. Yoga classes, organic meal prep, designer coffee cups positioned artfully next to leather-bound planners. But scrolling back through the past few months, I noticed something odd about the timing of her posts. Several photos were timestamped during school hours: Sarah at a spa, Sarah at lunch downtown, Sarah getting her nails done. All on days when I remembered seeing her at Riverside Elementary for various urgent PTA matters. Either she was manipulating timestamps, or she was lying about her whereabouts. My pulse quickened as I cross-referenced the dates with my own photos from school events. There, a picture from the November fundraising meeting showed Sarah deep in conversation with Morrison at 2:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. That same Tuesday, her Instagram showed her at a boutique shopping trip, tagged at 2:15 p.m. and located 15 miles away. The timestamp discrepancy was small enough to be overlooked but significant enough to suggest deception. Sarah was creating alibis for times when she was actually at school, meeting privately with Morrison. I spent the next 2 hours building a timeline, comparing Sarah's social media presence with her known appearances at Riverside Elementary. The pattern became clearer with each contradiction I uncovered. She was systematically lying about her schedule, covering her tracks for frequent unexplained visits to school. But I needed more than circumstantial evidence and suspicious timing. I needed proof that would be impossible to dismiss or explain away. That's when I remembered the security cameras. Riverside Elementary had installed a comprehensive camera system 2 years ago after a break-in. The cameras covered all entrances, hallways, and common areas. If Sarah and Morrison were meeting secretly, there would be video evidence, and I knew exactly who might help me access it. My phone buzzed with another text from David's lawyer. Asterisk, have you reconsidered our offer? Clock's ticking, Rebecca, asterisk. Perfect timing. Instead of panic, I felt a surge of cold determination. Sarah thought she'd destroyed my life, but she'd actually just eliminated my reasons for playing by the rules. Time to show her what a desperate mother could really accomplish. I knew trying to access the security footage officially would be suicide. Morrison would shut me down before I could even finish the request. But Riverside Elementary's night custodian, Miguel Santos, had been working there for 15 years. More importantly, his daughter Sophia was in my class last year, and we'd built a genuine connection during parent-teacher conferences when I'd helped her through some reading difficulties. Miguel arrived for his evening shift at 6 p.m. sharp, just as he had every weekday for the past decade and a half. I waited in my car across the street, watching through the chain-link fence as he unlocked the staff entrance. My heart hammered against my ribs as I approached the building, knowing I was about to cross a line I couldn't uncross. Mrs. Chen? Miguel's weathered face creased with concern when he saw me at the door. What are you doing here so late? Miguel, I need your help with something. It's about Sophia. It was a low blow, using his daughter to get his attention, but desperation had stripped away my usual ethical boundaries. Miguel's expression immediately sharpened. Any mention of his kids commanded his full focus. Is she in trouble? Her grades this year? No, nothing like that. But there's a situation at school that could affect all the kids, including Sophia. Someone is trying to frame me for something I didn't do, and I think they're targeting other good teachers too. Miguel stepped aside to let me into the building, his keys jangling softly in the empty hallway. What kind of frame? I showed him the fake screenshots on my phone, watching his face darken as he read. Miguel had seen enough playground politics over the years to recognize manufactured drama when he saw it. This is not you, he said firmly. You helped Sophia when other teachers gave up on her. You stayed after school, made special worksheets, called me with updates. This is someone trying to hurt you. I think I know who, but I need proof. Miguel, the security cameras. No. He shook his head immediately. I can't access those files. That's Morrison's system, password protected. I could lose my job. What if Morrison is part of the problem? Miguel's eyes widened. He'd worked under 4 different principals at Riverside Elementary, and he'd developed keen instincts about administrative corruption. What do you mean? I pulled up the photos on my phone, Sarah and Morrison at various school events, standing closer than professional colleagues should. I think they're having an affair, and she's using it to control him. She fabricated evidence against me because I'm a threat to her influence. Miguel studied the images carefully, his expression growing troubled. Mrs. Whitman comes here a lot. After hours, weekends. Always says it's PTA business, but... He trailed off, clearly uncomfortable with the implications. But what? Last month, I saw Principal Morrison's car here on Saturday evening. Building was supposed to be empty, but when I came in to fix a broken pipe, I heard voices from his office. Door was locked, lights were off in the hallway, but I could see them through the window. My pulse spiked. What did you see? Enough to mind my own business and finish my work quickly. Miguel's face was grim. Mrs. Chen, if what you're saying is true, this is very dangerous. These people have power. They can hurt you. They're already hurting me. My ex-husband's lawyer called today. They want to take my son away because of these fake messages. If I don't fight back now, I lose everything. Miguel was quiet for a long moment, weighing his options. Finally, he sighed heavily. I can't access the security system, but I know someone who might help. My nephew Carlos, he works for the company that installed the cameras. Maybe he can tell us what's stored on the system. It wasn't ideal, but it was better than nothing. Can you call him? Not here. Too risky. But tomorrow night, maybe we meet somewhere else and discuss options. I was about to respond when we both heard it, the distinctive chirp of a car alarm being set in the parking lot. Miguel's face went pale. Someone's here. You need to leave, now. We moved quickly toward the back exit, but not quickly enough. As we rounded the corner into the main hallway, I saw a familiar silhouette through the front door's glass panels. Sarah Whitman was walking toward the building, keys in hand, moving with the confidence of someone who belonged there. This way, Miguel whispered, pulling me toward a side corridor that led to the gymnasium. Storage room, she won't check there. We made it into the cramped space just as the front doors opened. I pressed my back against a shelf of cleaning supplies, barely breathing as footsteps echoed through the hallway. Miguel's face was tense in the dim light filtering under the door. The footsteps paused directly outside the storage room. My heart stopped completely as the door handle rattled. Then Sarah's voice, muffled but audible, Miguel? I saw your card in the hallway. Just wanted to let you know I'm here for some PTA files. Yes, Mrs. Whitman, Miguel called back, his voice admirably steady. Working in the East Wing tonight. Broken radiator in classroom 14. Of course. Don't mind me, I'll be in and out quickly. The footsteps moved away, heading toward the administrative wing where Morrison's office was located. Miguel and I remained frozen for several more minutes, listening to the distant sounds of doors opening and closing. When silence finally returned, Miguel shook his head grimly. Mrs. Chen, this is worse than I thought. She has keys to the building. Administrative keys that only staff should have. The full scope of Sarah's infiltration was becoming clear. She wasn't just influencing Morrison, she had complete access to the school, could come and go as she pleased, probably had been gathering intelligence on teachers and parents for months. We need that security footage, I whispered. It's the only way to stop her. Miguel nodded slowly. I'll call Carlos tomorrow. But Mrs. Chen, if we do this, there's no going back. People like Mrs. Whitman, they don't just go away quietly when cornered. They fight dirty. Through the thin storage room walls, we could hear Sarah moving around Morrison's office, opening filing cabinets, clearly comfortable in the space. The sound of her casual invasion of what should have been a secure area only strengthened my resolve. She's already fighting dirty, Miguel. It's time I learned how to fight back. Miguel's nephew Carlos turned out to be both a blessing and a complication wrapped into one nervous 20-something with shifty eyes and an unfortunate tendency to speak in rapid-fire Spanish when stressed. We met Wednesday evening at a dingy coffee shop downtown, far enough from Riverside Elementary that we wouldn't accidentally run into anyone from school. Carlos hunched over his laptop, occasionally glancing around like he expected the FBI to burst through the door. Tia asterisk, this is crazy, he muttered to Miguel in Spanish before switching to English for my benefit. The camera system at your school, it's not just recording. Someone's been accessing it remotely, downloading specific files. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I mean someone with administrator access has been pulling footage regularly. Not random pulls either, targeted dates and times. Like they know exactly what they're looking for. Carlos's fingers flew across his keyboard, showing us timestamps and file access logs that might as well have been hieroglyphics to me. Miguel leaned forward. Can you tell who's accessing it? That's where it gets weird. The login credentials trace back to Principal Morrison, but the access patterns are all wrong. Morrison pulls footage maybe once a month, usually after incidents, broken windows, fights, that kind of thing. But these downloads? They're happening weekly, sometimes daily, always after hours. I felt sick. Sarah has Morrison's login information. Or Morrison's doing it for her, Carlos said grimly. Either way, they've been watching everyone. Teachers, parents, students, everything that happens in common areas gets recorded and archived. Can you get us footage from specific dates? I asked, pulling out my phone with the timeline I'd built of Sarah's suspicious activities. Carlos shook his head. Here's the bigger problem, the files I need have been scrubbed from the main server. Someone with admin access has been systematically deleting footage, keeping only what they want to keep. My carefully constructed plan crumbled. So there's no evidence? I didn't say that. Carlos's nervous energy suddenly shifted to excitement. See, these systems have backup protocols. Every time someone downloads footage, it creates a shadow copy on the secondary server, just in case the main files get corrupted. Most people don't know about it because it's buried in the technical specifications. Can you access the backup server? That's the risky part. I'd have to physically connect to the system from inside the school building. Remote access for backup servers is disabled for security reasons. Carlos glanced between Miguel and me. And if I get caught, we're all screwed. Breaking into a school's security system is a felony. Miguel's weathered hands rubbed his temples. When would you need to do this? Tomorrow night would be ideal. Friday evening, Morrison usually leaves early on Fridays, buildings mostly empty except for you doing your regular rounds. I was about to agree when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk saw you at Brewster's Coffee tonight. Interesting company you're keeping these days. S asterisk. The blood drained from my face as I showed the message to Miguel and Carlos. Brewster's Coffee, the name of this exact shop. Sarah had been watching us. We need to leave. Now. I stood abruptly, scanning the shop's windows and parking lot. She knows. Carlos slammed his laptop shut while Miguel moved toward the exit, his eyes sweeping for threats. We'd been so focused on surveillance at school that we'd forgotten Sarah's reach extended far beyond Riverside Elementary. In the parking lot, I spotted a black Mercedes SUV idling across the street, Sarah's car. Even from a distance, I could see her silhouette behind the wheel, phone pressed to her ear. Separate cars, Miguel said quietly. Carlos, go home. Don't contact us for a few days. What about tomorrow night? Carlos asked, his earlier excitement replaced by genuine fear. Too dangerous now. She knows we're planning something. As I climbed into my car, another text arrived, asterisk nice try, Rebecca. Did you really think I wouldn't notice you skulking around with the help? Some advice, when you're plotting someone's downfall, don't do it in public places. Amateur mistake asterisk. My hand shook as I started the engine. Sarah wasn't just one step ahead, she was playing an entirely different game, with resources and surveillance capabilities I'd never imagined. The woman who stood at PTA podiums discussing bake sale logistics was apparently running a sophisticated intelligence operation. But her text revealed something crucial, she was worried enough about my activities to follow me personally. That meant I was closer to something important than she wanted me to be. Thursday morning brought the nuclear option I'd been dreading. Morrison called at 6 a.m., his voice coldly professional. Rebecca, I need you to come in immediately. We have a situation. What kind of situation? The kind that involves police reports and restraining orders. Be here in 30 minutes, and bring a representative if you have one. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in my empty apartment. Police reports. Sarah had escalated beyond fake screenshots and whispered rumors. She'd involved law enforcement. 28 minutes later, I walked into Morrison's office to find Sarah sitting primly in one of his guest chairs, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. She looked up when I entered, her expression perfectly calibrated between brave victim and concerned community member. Rebecca, Morrison said without preamble, Mrs. Whitman has filed a harassment complaint. She's provided evidence that you've been stalking her, taking unauthorized photographs, and now recruiting school employees to help you violate her privacy. Sarah's performance was masterful, a slight tremor in her voice, just enough emotion to seem genuine without appearing hysterical. I'm sorry it's come to this, Rebecca. I know you've been under stress, but following me to coffee shops, photographing my private moments, it has to stop. I stared at her in amazement. In less than 12 hours, she'd managed to flip the entire narrative, transforming her own surveillance of me into evidence of my supposed stalking behavior. Morrison slid a document across his desk. This is a temporary restraining order. You're required to stay at least 500 feet away from Mrs. Whitman, her home, and any location where she's conducting PTA business. The legal document might as well have been a death sentence. Sarah conducted PTA business everywhere, school events, grocery stores, coffee shops, even the park where I took Jake on weekends. This is insane, I managed. She's the one who. Rebecca. Morrison's voice cut through my protest. Mrs. Whitman has security footage of you lurking around the school building after hours, photographic evidence of you surveilling her at public locations, and witness statements about your erratic behavior. Security footage. Of course. Sarah had used the same camera system we'd planned to exploit, turning my desperate investigation into evidence of obsessive stalking. The PTA meeting is tonight, Sarah said softly, her voice heavy with manufactured regret. Under normal circumstances, the community would want to hear from you about these allegations. But given the restraining order, she didn't need to finish. The PTA meeting where I'd planned to expose her affair was now legally off limits. Even if I could prove Morrison and Sarah were sleeping together, I couldn't present evidence I'd obtained through what now appeared to be criminal harassment. Sarah Whitman had checkmated me completely. I sat in my car outside Morrison's office, the restraining order burning like acid in my hands. The legal language was dense, but the message was crystal clear. Sarah had effectively exiled me from my own life. The 500-foot radius didn't just cover her house, it included the grocery store where she shopped, the Starbucks where she held informal PTA meetings, even the pediatric dental office where both our kids got cleanings. My phone rang before I could fully process the implications. Lisa's name flashed on the screen. Becca? Oh my god, are you okay? I just got the weirdest call from David. My stomach clenched. What did he say? Something about emergency custody hearings and police reports. He sounded gleeful. What the hell is happening? Through the windshield, I could see Sarah emerging from the school building, her posture radiating victory. She paused at her Mercedes, phone pressed to her ear, and for one terrifying moment our eyes met across the parking lot. Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. I can't talk about it over the phone, I told Lisa. Can I come over? Of course, but Becca, David mentioned something about supervised visitation starting this weekend. Please tell me that's not true. My chest tightened. I'll explain everything when I get there. But as I started my car, another thought struck me like lightning. Sarah's restraining order was comprehensive, but it had one critical flaw. It assumed I'd keep playing by her rules. What if I stopped trying to be the better person? Lisa's kitchen had always been my safe harbor, warm lighting, the lingering smell of whatever amazing meal she'd prepared, family photos covering every surface. But today, even her cozy sanctuary couldn't ease the knot of rage growing in my chest. She's been planning this for months, I said, pacing between her counter and kitchen table while Lisa listened in horrified silence. Every move calculated, every contingency covered. I'd been playing checkers while she's been playing chess. But the police believed her? Just like that? She had evidence, Lisa. Real evidence that I was doing exactly what she said, following her, taking photos, meeting with school employees after hours. The fact that I was doing it to defend myself doesn't matter legally. Lisa poured herself a second cup of coffee, her hands shaking slightly. What about Jake? Emergency hearing Monday morning. David's lawyer says they have enough to justify immediate supervised visitation pending a full custody review. I stopped pacing, pressing my palms against the cool granite countertop. Sarah didn't just want me gone, she wanted me destroyed. Complete annihilation. There has to be something we can do. What about your union rep? The Teachers Association? I laughed bitterly. My union rep got a call this morning. Apparently, additional parents have come forward with concerns about my classroom behavior. Nothing actionable, just enough whispered allegations to make the union want to distance themselves until everything gets sorted out. More parents? How is that possible? Sarah's been busy. PTA networking at its finest. I pulled up my phone, showing Lisa the flood of messages I'd been receiving since yesterday. Look at this, parents asking if the rumors are true, offering support but in that careful way that means they're hedging their bets. Everyone's scared of being associated with the scandal. Lisa scrolled through the messages, her expression growing darker. This is character assassination. It's brilliant character assassination. Sarah hasn't made any direct accusations, she's just created an atmosphere where everyone else draws their own conclusions and fills in the blanks. I collapsed into one of Lisa's kitchen chairs, exhaustion hitting me like a physical weight. She's turned me into suburban toxic waste. Nobody wants to get contaminated. What about the affair? Morrison and Sarah, surely someone else has noticed. Noticed what? Two adults having private conversations at school events? They've been careful, Lisa. Whatever I might have suspected, it's all circumstantial. Meanwhile, Sarah has actual documentation of me stalking her. Lisa was quiet for a moment, sipping her coffee thoughtfully. You know what doesn't make sense to me? The timeline. If Sarah's been planning this for months, why now? Why not wait until the end of the school year when your contract comes up for renewal? Why the rushed timeline with fake screenshots and emergency restraining orders? I'd been so focused on Sarah's tactical brilliance that I hadn't considered the strategic question. Lisa was right. The accelerated timeline suggested desperation, not calculated planning. Maybe something forced her hand, I said slowly. Something that made waiting too risky. Like what? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Miguel. Asterisk Mrs. Chen, need to talk. Important news about what we discussed. Can you meet tonight? Asterisk. My pulse quickened. Miguel wouldn't risk contacting me unless he discovered something significant. But the restraining order made meeting him complicated. If Sarah was monitoring my activities, any contact with school employees could be construed as violation of the court order. Another message followed. Asterisk not at school. My cousin's garage on Elm Street. 8 p.m. Come alone. Asterisk. Lisa read over my shoulder. You can't go. If she catches you meeting with him, you'll end up in jail. If I don't go, I'll never find out what Sarah's really hiding. I stood up, my mind already racing ahead to the evening meeting. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? I'm already losing my job, my son, my reputation. At some point, you run out of things to be afraid of losing. That's exactly when people make catastrophically bad decisions. She wasn't wrong. But as I looked at my sister's worried face, I realized something had shifted inside me during the past few hours. The fear that had paralyzed me since Friday was burning away, replaced by something colder and more focused. Sarah Whitman had made one crucial miscalculation in her perfect plan. She'd assumed that destroying my life would break my spirit. Instead, it had just freed me from caring about the consequences. Miguel's cousin's garage turned out to be a cramped auto repair shop that smelled like motor oil and decades of cigarette smoke. I found Miguel waiting in the back office, his usually calm demeanor replaced by nervous energy that immediately put me on edge. Mrs. Chen, thank you for coming. I know this is dangerous for you. What did you find? Miguel glanced toward the garage's front windows before pulling out his phone. After what happened at the coffee shop, I couldn't stop thinking. If Mrs. Whitman has been watching you so closely, maybe she's been watching other people too. Other people? I started paying attention during my rounds, looking for patterns I might have missed before. Mrs. Chen, she doesn't just visit Morrison's office. 3 times this week, I've seen her car in the parking lot during lunch periods, times when she has no official business at school. My heart rate picked up. Where does she go? That's what I wanted to find out. So today, I watched. She met with Jennifer Walsh from 3rd grade. 15 minutes in Walsh's classroom, door closed, blinds drawn. Miguel's weathered hands fidgeted with his phone case. When Mrs. Walsh came out, she looked upset. Really upset. Jennifer Walsh, the teacher who'd given me that strange look yesterday morning when I was cleaning out my classroom. Did you hear what they talked about? No, but I saw Mrs. Walsh afterwards. She went straight to her computer and started typing. Looked like she was filling out some kind of form. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. An incident report. Sarah's collecting witness statements from other teachers. Gets worse. After Mrs. Walsh, she visited 2 more classrooms. Always the same pattern, private conversations, closed doors, teachers looking shaken afterward. I slumped against the office's metal desk. She's not just destroying me. She's building an entire case file, getting multiple staff members on record with concerns about my behavior. Miguel nodded grimly. But here's the thing that bothers me, I know these teachers. Walsh, Martinez from 4th grade, even Thompson from kindergarten. They're good people, but they're scared people. Young teachers with families, mortgages, student loans. The kind of people who can't afford to lose their jobs. So Sarah threatens their job security unless they cooperate with her investigation. Or promises career advancement if they do cooperate. Mrs. Whitman has a lot of influence over hiring decisions, committee appointments, professional development opportunities. The sophistication of Sarah's operation was breathtaking. She hadn't just fabricated evidence against me, she'd constructed an entire network of coerced witnesses, each one adding credibility to her narrative while protecting themselves from her reach. There's something else, Miguel continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. I talked to Carlos again today. He can't help us with the security footage anymore. His company got a call this morning threatening to cancel their contract if any employees were found accessing school systems inappropriately. Sarah knows about Carlos. She knows about everything, Mrs. Chen. It's like she has eyes everywhere. Miguel paused, studying my face in the dim light. My question is, what are you going to do about it? I thought about the PTA meeting happening right now, just a few miles away. Sarah would be holding court as usual, probably expressing deep concern for my mental health struggles while accepting sympathy for having to take such difficult but necessary action. The other parents would nod along, grateful that such a dedicated community leader was protecting their children from an unstable teacher. Miguel, what if I told you I had one more idea? Something that might expose what she's really been doing? His eyes narrowed. I'd say that every idea you've had so far has made things worse for you. He wasn't wrong. But sitting in that dingy garage office, listening to the details of Sarah's systematic campaign against me, I realized something that should have terrified me but instead filled me with cold determination. Sarah's plan was too perfect. Too comprehensive. Too ruthless. And that might just be the weakness I've been looking for. What kind of idea? Miguel asked, though his tone suggested he already regretted the question. I pulled up the photos on my phone, not the ones of Sarah and Morrison that had backfired so spectacularly, but screenshots of all her threatening texts. Sarah's been so focused on building the perfect case against me that she's left a trail of her own crimes. Blackmail, harassment, conspiracy, it's all here in writing. Miguel squinted at the screen. Mrs. Chen, who's going to believe you now? After the restraining order, after all the witness statements. That's exactly why it might work. I stood up, pacing in the small space as the plan crystallized in my mind. Sarah's convinced she's untouchable because she's destroyed my credibility. But what if the evidence didn't come from me? What do you mean? I mean, what if someone else, someone without a restraining order, someone with an impeccable reputation, happened to discover proof of Sarah's illegal activities? Miguel's expression shifted from confusion to alarm. Mrs. Chen, I can't get involved any deeper than I already am. I have 5 grandchildren depending on my job. Not you. Someone Sarah would never suspect, someone she's been manipulating without realizing it. I scrolled through my contacts, stopping at a name that made my pulse quicken. Jennifer Walsh. The third-grade teacher? She's cooperating with Mrs. Whitman's investigation. Because she's scared, not because she believes I'm actually dangerous. Miguel, you said she looked upset after her meeting with Sarah. What if that wasn't guilt? What if it was disgust? Miguel considered this. You think she knows she's being used? I think Jennifer Walsh has been teaching for 8 years without a single disciplinary action. She's smart enough to recognize a witch hunt when she sees one. I was already composing a text message in my head. The question is whether she's brave enough to do something about it. And if she's not? If she reports your contact to Mrs. Whitman? Then I'm exactly where I am right now, completely screwed but with nothing left to lose. I headed toward the garage's back exit. Miguel, thank you for everything you've done. Whatever happens next, keep your distance. Don't let Sarah drag you down with me. The drive to Jennifer Walsh's neighborhood felt like crossing into enemy territory. Sarah's restraining order didn't technically prevent me from contacting other teachers, but it created enough legal ambiguity that any interaction could be twisted into evidence of continued harassment. Jennifer lived in a modest duplex about 10 minutes from school, the kind of place young teachers could afford on starting salaries. Her car was in the driveway, but I sat in mine for several minutes, second-guessing everything about this desperate gambit. My phone buzzed with a notification that made my blood freeze, a Facebook post from Sarah, tagged with my name and visible to her 800-plus friends. Asterisk heartbroken to share that our Riverside Elementary community is dealing with a difficult situation involving threats against dedicated PTA volunteers. Please keep all our teachers and families in your thoughts during this challenging time. Hashtag community strong, hashtag protect our kids asterisk. The comments were already pouring in, parents expressing shock, offering support to Sarah, speculating about which teacher could be involved. Someone had already connected my absence from school with Sarah's vague allegations, and my name was spreading through the comment thread like wildfire. Sarah wasn't content with destroying my career and taking my son. She was orchestrating my complete social exile, ensuring that even if I somehow survived the legal challenges, I'd never be welcome in this community again. But her public post revealed something crucial. She felt secure enough to move into the open, confident that her victory was complete. Time to prove her wrong. I walked up to Jennifer's front door before I could lose my nerve, knowing this single conversation would either save my life or finish destroying it. The choice was no longer mine to make. Jennifer Walsh answered her door in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her auburn hair pulled back in a messy bun. The moment she saw me, her face cycled through surprise, fear, and something that might have been relief. Rebecca? What are you doing here? I heard about the... She glanced nervously at her neighbors' houses. Maybe you should come inside. Her living room was cozy chaos, stacks of ungraded papers on the coffee table, a half-eaten dinner cooling on a TV tray, lesson plans scattered across the couch. The life of a dedicated teacher trying to balance impossible demands, just like I'd been doing a week ago. Jennifer, I know Sarah came to see you today. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. I can't talk about that. She said there might be legal issues, and I could be called as a witness. She threatened your job, didn't she? Jennifer's composure cracked slightly. She sank into her armchair, suddenly looking much older than her 28 years. Not directly. But she made it very clear that my contract renewal depends on my cooperation with the investigation. What exactly did she want you to say? That you've been acting strange lately. Paranoid. Making inappropriate comments about parents and administration. Jennifer's voice was barely above a whisper. She had a whole list of things she wanted me to remember observing. My stomach dropped. Things that never happened. I know. The admission burst out of her like a confession. Rebecca, I've worked across the hall from you for 2 years. You're not paranoid or inappropriate, you're one of the most professional teachers I've ever met. But Sarah, she knows things. What kind of things? Jennifer stood abruptly, walking to her window and peering through the blinds. 2 months ago, I had a parent complaint. A mother claimed I'd been too harsh with her son during a behavioral incident. It was completely fabricated. The kid had thrown scissors at another student, but the complaint went into my personnel file. Standard procedure. Miguel mentioned you handled it perfectly. That's just it, the complaint disappeared from my file 3 days later. No explanation, no official retraction. Just gone. Jennifer turned back to me, her face pale. Sarah mentioned it today. Said she'd hate to see false allegations resurface during contract renewal season. The pattern was becoming clearer. Sarah hadn't just been collecting dirt on me, she'd been building leverage over multiple teachers, manipulating their personnel files to create artificial crises she could then resolve in exchange for loyalty. Jennifer, she's blackmailing half the staff. I know. But what am I supposed to do? I have student loans, rent, my mom's medical bills. I can't afford to lose this job over principle. You won't lose your job. Sarah's the one breaking the law here. Jennifer laughed bitterly. Who's going to believe that? She's PTA president, beloved community member, married to the guy who owns 3 local businesses. I'm a nobody teacher with no connections and no money for lawyers. What if I could prove she's been manipulating personnel files? What if I could show that she's been coercing witness statements? How? I pulled out my phone, showing her the screenshots of Sarah's threatening texts. She's been documenting her own crimes, Jennifer. Every threat, every manipulation, it's all here in writing. Jennifer studied the messages, her expression shifting from fear to anger as she read Sarah's increasingly brazen threats. This is insane. She's actually admitting to fabricating evidence. The question is, are you willing to help me expose it? What would I have to do? Text her back. Tell her you're having second thoughts about the witness statement, that your conscience is bothering you. See how she responds. Jennifer paled. If she realizes I'm working against her, she'll do exactly what she's been doing, threaten and manipulate. But this time, we'll have proof that can't be dismissed as fake or taken out of context. Jennifer paced to her window again, clearly wrestling with the decision. Rebecca, what you're asking? It's career suicide if it goes wrong. Jennifer. I waited until she looked at me. What do you think happens to teachers who don't fit Sarah's vision for the school? How long before she decides you're too independent, too popular with parents, too much of a threat? The question hung in the air between us. Jennifer had seen what Sarah could do when crossed. My complete destruction had taken less than a week. She mentioned other teachers today, Jennifer said quietly. Said the investigation might expand if additional concerns came to light. She specifically asked about your relationship with Marcus Thompson and Diana Martinez. My heart sank. Sarah wasn't planning to stop with me. She was preparing to systematically eliminate any teacher who might challenge her authority. She's building a network of compliant, terrified staff, I said. Teachers who owe their jobs to her protection and know what happens to anyone who crosses her. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment, staring at her scattered lesson plans. Finally, she picked up her phone. What exactly do you want me to text her? Jennifer's fingers hovered over her phone keyboard for what felt like an eternity. The glow from the screen cast harsh shadows across her face as she wrestled with a decision that could save or destroy both our careers. I can't believe I'm doing this, she muttered, then started typing. Sarah, I've been thinking about our conversation today. I'm not comfortable with some of the things you asked me to include in my statement about Rebecca. Can we talk? She hit send before she could change her mind, then immediately set the phone face down on her coffee table like it might explode. How long do you think? The response came back in less than 30 seconds. Of course, dear. Teaching is stressful and these situations are never easy. Why don't I stop by tonight so we can discuss your concerns privately? Jennifer's face went white. She wants to come here. Tonight. My pulse spiked. That's perfect. If she shows up to pressure you in person, we'll have everything we need. Perfect? Rebecca, this woman just destroyed your entire life in a week. What do you think she'll do to me if she realizes I'm recording her? She won't realize it. Sarah's gotten comfortable operating in the shadows. She won't expect to be caught on tape during what she thinks is routine witness intimidation. Jennifer stood up abruptly, pacing to her kitchen. I need a drink. Or 10 drinks. This is insane. Jennifer, listen to me. I followed her, keeping my voice calm despite the adrenaline coursing through my system. Sarah's power comes from isolation. She picks off her targets one by one, making each person think they're alone against her influence. But what if she's not as untouchable as she pretends? What do you mean? Think about it. If Sarah's operation is as sophisticated as we think, she's had to involve other people. Morrison, obviously, but probably others too. School board members, district administrators, maybe even some parents. I leaned against Jennifer's kitchen counter. The bigger the conspiracy, the more potential witnesses. The more potential witnesses, the more people who might be willing to talk if they knew they weren't alone. Jennifer poured herself a glass of wine with shaking hands. You're talking about taking down the entire PTA power structure. I'm talking about exposing criminal behavior before it destroys more innocent people. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Sarah, I'm actually nearby running errands. Would now work? I know you're worried and I'd hate for you to spend the evening stressed about this. She's coming now, Jennifer whispered. Oh God, she's probably already in her car. The rapid escalation felt familiar, Sarah's pattern of applying immediate pressure to prevent her targets from thinking too carefully about their options. But her eagerness to handle Jennifer's concerns in person also revealed something important. She's worried, I realized. Jennifer, your text spooked her more than she's letting on. She needs to shut down your doubts immediately. Great. So she'll be extra motivated to destroy me if this goes wrong. Or extra careless because she's operating in crisis mode instead of her usual calculated planning. I grabbed Jennifer's arm gently. Where can I hide where I'll be able to hear everything but stay out of sight? The bedroom's right off the living room. Door doesn't close completely, but if you stay back from the crack, she won't see you. Can you get her to admit to the fake screenshots? The personnel file manipulations? I don't know. I've never been an undercover spy before. Jennifer's voice was climbing toward panic. What if I say the wrong thing? What if she gets suspicious? Just be yourself, a concerned teacher who's having second thoughts about participating in what feels like a witch hunt. Let her do most of the talking. Sarah loves to explain how clever she's been. Car headlights swept across Jennifer's front window. We both froze. She's here, Jennifer breathed. I squeezed her shoulder. You can do this. Remember, you're not just saving my career. You're protecting every teacher at Riverside Elementary from what she has planned. I slipped into the bedroom just as Sarah's car door slammed in the driveway. Through the gap in the door, I had a clear view of the living room and could hear everything. Jennifer took a deep breath, smoothed her hair, and walked to the front door. Sarah's voice carried clearly as she entered. Jennifer, sweetheart, you sounded so upset in your text. I hope you're not letting guilt cloud your judgment about doing the right thing for our children. The game was about to begin. Sarah swept into Jennifer's living room like she owned it, her designer handbag perfectly coordinated with her evening athleisure wear. Even at 8 p.m. on a Thursday, she looked camera-ready, the kind of effortless perfection that took hours to achieve. I brought you some chamomile tea, Sarah said, producing a thermos from her bag. It's my own blend. Very calming for anxious nerves. From my hiding spot in the bedroom, I watched Jennifer accept the thermos with trembling hands. Sarah's gesture seemed caring, but something about it felt calculated, like she was already setting the stage to explain away any emotional distress Jennifer might display later. Sarah, thank you for coming so quickly. I keep thinking about what you asked me to say about Rebecca, and it doesn't feel right. Sarah settled onto the couch with the familiarity of someone accustomed to making herself comfortable in other people's faces. Oh honey, I understand completely. It's always difficult when we have to acknowledge that someone we trusted has been struggling with serious personal issues. But that's just it, I don't think Rebecca has been struggling. She's always seemed completely professional to me. Jennifer. Sarah's voice took on a patient, almost maternal tone. What you're experiencing is very normal. Rebecca is a manipulator. She's very good at presenting a stable facade while engaging in increasingly erratic behavior behind the scenes. I pressed closer to the door crack, my phone ready to record. Sarah was laying the groundwork for her narrative, but she hadn't said anything explicitly incriminating yet. Jennifer took a sip from the thermos, then set it aside quickly. The tea tastes strange. It's an herbal blend, acquired taste. Now, about your statement. The specific incidents I mentioned aren't accusations, Jennifer. They're patterns that concerned parents and staff have already reported to administration. Which parents? Which staff members? Sarah's smile flickered for just a moment. I'm not at liberty to share that information, but I can tell you the concerns are widespread. Your confirmation of Rebecca's paranoid comments about PTA members would simply corroborate what others have already documented. Except I never heard Rebecca make paranoid comments about PTA members. Are you certain? Think carefully. Perhaps during a casual conversation in the hallway? Or maybe a comment that seemed innocent at the time but takes on new meaning given what we now know about her behavior? I felt sick listening to Sarah's coaching session. She wasn't asking Jennifer to lie outright, she was walking her through the process of reinterpreting innocent interactions as evidence of instability. Sarah, I've been thinking about this all afternoon, and I honestly can't remember Rebecca ever saying anything inappropriate about anyone. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Sarah's perfectly composed mask slipped slightly, revealing something cold underneath. Jennifer, I'm concerned that you're not fully grasping the seriousness of this situation. Rebecca Chen has been stalking me. She's violated a restraining order. She's engaged in conspiracy with school employees to access confidential systems. Sarah leaned forward, her voice hardening. Do you really want to be seen as an obstacle to protecting our children from someone that unstable? I want to be honest about what I've actually observed. Honesty can be complicated. For instance, I'd hate for anyone to revisit that parent complaint from October. The one about your classroom management techniques. Sarah's tone remained conversational, but the threat was unmistakable. These situations can escalate so quickly once they're in the system. There it was. I held my breath as Sarah crossed from manipulation into explicit blackmail. Jennifer's voice was barely steady. That complaint was resolved. Complaints are never truly resolved, dear. They're just managed. By people who understand the importance of community cooperation. Sarah stood, smoothing her jacket. I'm sure once you've had time to think clearly, you'll remember those concerning conversations with Rebecca. Memory can be such a tricky thing when we're under stress. As Sarah moved toward the door, she paused. Oh, and Jennifer? I'd be very careful about who else you discuss this with. Confidentiality is so important in sensitive matters like these. The thread hung in the air like poison as Sarah let herself out, leaving Jennifer staring at the closed door with the expression of someone who'd just glimpsed their own professional execution. I emerged from the bedroom to find Jennifer slumped on her couch, the untouched thermos sitting ominously on her coffee table. Did you get it? She whispered. I checked my phone's recording app. Every beautiful, incriminating word. I stared at my phone's recording, 23 minutes of Sarah Whitman systematically destroying herself with her own words. Blackmail, witness intimidation, conspiracy, all captured in crystal clear audio that no lawyer or school board could dismiss as fabricated evidence. What happens now? Jennifer asked, still gripping her wine glass like a lifeline. Now we make copies of everything and deliver them to people who can't be bought or intimidated. I was already scrolling through my contacts, my mind racing through the possibilities. The state education department, the district attorney's office, maybe even local media. Sarah will know it came from me. She'll destroy my career before any investigation even starts. Not if we move fast enough. I looked up from my phone. Jennifer, the PTA meeting ended an hour ago. Sarah's probably feeling invincible right now, thinking she's handled her last loose end. She won't be expecting a coordinated attack. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, and my blood went cold as I read it. * nice try with your little recording session. Did you really think I wouldn't notice Jennifer's car in the school parking lot this afternoon? Or your sister's car driving by her house twice tonight? Amateur surveillance, Rebecca. *. Jennifer read over my shoulder and went pale. She knows. She knows everything. But instead of panic, I felt something else, clarity. Sarah's text revealed the scope of her surveillance operation, but it also revealed her fatal flaw. She was so obsessed with controlling every variable that she'd documented her own criminal activities. She's been watching all of us, I said slowly. Following cars, monitoring locations, probably taking photos. Jennifer, that's not just harassment, that's felony stalking. What good does that do us if she destroys the evidence before we can use it? I thought about Sarah's perfectly curated social media presence, her meticulous planning, her need to document and control everything. Sarah Whitman is a narcissist who can't resist keeping trophies of her victories. She won't destroy evidence, she'll keep it as proof of how clever she's been. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in my car outside the police station, my hands surprisingly steady as I dialed the number for Detective Maria Santos, no relation to Miguel, but a name I'd found through online research into officers who specialized in cybercrime and harassment cases. Detective Santos? This is Rebecca Chen. I need to report multiple felonies involving blackmail, witness intimidation, and stalking. I have recorded evidence, documented threats, and I believe the suspect has been conducting illegal surveillance on multiple victims. The next 6 hours blurred together in a haze of police interviews, evidence submission, and legal consultations. By dawn Friday morning, Sarah Whitman was in custody facing charges that would destroy her perfect life far more thoroughly than she destroyed mine. The search warrant executed on her home computer revealed the full scope of her operation, surveillance photos of dozens of teachers and parents, manipulated personnel files, and a detailed spreadsheet tracking leverage points on various community members. She kept everything, unable to resist cataloging her own criminal enterprise. Principal Morrison resigned immediately when investigators discovered evidence of their affair and his complicity in personnel file manipulations. The school board launched a comprehensive review that ultimately cleared my name and led to my reinstatement with full back pay. But the sweetest victory came 3 weeks later, at Jake's baseball game. He ran toward me after hitting his first home run of the season, his face shining with pride as he threw his arms around my waist. Did you see that, Mom? Did you see? I saw everything, buddy. I'm so proud of you. Behind me, I could hear other parents cheering, their voices warm with genuine community spirit, the kind Sarah had tried to counterfeit but never understood. I'd lost my naive faith in playing by the rules, but I'd gained something more valuable, the knowledge that sometimes fighting back is the only way to protect what truly matters.